And there's one big question. Why do so many people on this planet fight each other? Why there's so many conflict? Why can't we express more love and kindness?
Because of our conditioning, which goes back to tribal, primitive, medieval minds. What you see in Russia and Ukraine and the Middle East, war, famine, social injustice, economic injustice, climate change, all these are projections of the conditioned tribal mind. We are sleepwalking our way to extinction unless we suddenly wake up. We have to wake up, and it's urgent. The technologies are there, to reverse climate change, to resurrect even extinct species, to create a planet of global peace and prosperity. We need maximum diversity in education, in the arts, in music, in poetry, in philosophy, in science, in technology, and ethnic background. Maximum diversity, emotional and spiritual bonding, and shared vision. If we have those three components, we can create a new world.
Michael Pilarczyk.
Also known as Mr. Mindset. From a renowned DJ and TV host to a millionaire at 27.
I told you many years ago, you got a Rolls-Royce voice.
After losing all his money on the stock market,
he bounced back, made millions again, and then went on a journey of self-awareness.
He now is a best-selling author, speaker, and serial entrepreneur.
His insights guide people to transform their lives,
find clarity, and live with purpose.
Our special guest today is a master and teacher in meditation, in well-being, in health, and expanding consciousness. He has written 92 books, and his latest bestseller is called Abundance, The Inner Path to Wealth. And I had the privilege to write the foreword for the new book of Deepak Chopra. Dr. Chopra, welcome. Thank you for being our guest today.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for doing the foreword. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much. I really have great respect for you. You're a wise man, 75 years old, healthy and vital, but please tell me one thing. How can a human being write 92 books in one lifetime?
It's an attitude. I have the attitude that the divine writes the books and I collect the royalties. So every night before I sleep, I ask myself questions. And also before meditation, I ask myself questions. Then I get some insights. And then I start writing. And I don't have a book in mind. I have notes. And I write many notes on many subjects. And then 2 or 3 somehow evolve into the books. And then I submit them to my publishers, to my editors. And sometimes they say, this is too abstract, do this, do that. And I regard my editors as very knowledgeable and wise as to what will resonate with a reading audience. Because a lot of what I write, actually, I think maybe doesn't even resonate. It's just my own reflections to myself. So that's the process.
And is it true that the first time you wrote a book way back, no one wanted to publish that one?
Correct. It was actually called Creating Health, the Mind-Body Connection. So I self-published the book, and then, somebody placed it in a bookstore, was picked up by an agent's son for her birthday, and she then got me a regular publisher. It became a bestseller. And then the rest, after that, I was publishing nonstop.
Your new book is called Abundance. It sounds so wonderful, life in abundance. But what does it really mean, life in abundance?
Well, ask yourself why in every seed there is this promise of thousands of forests. Ask yourself why there are 2 trillion galaxies, 700 sextillion stars, and uncountable trillions of planets, possibly 60 billion habitable planets in just the Milky Way galaxy, based on what we call the Goldilocks zone. Ask yourself, if for every thought you have access to an infinity of more thoughts. For every creative idea you have, there's an infinity of more to be had. For every image you construct in your consciousness, there are infinite more. So our essential state is actually infinite and non-reducible and fundamental. But it is not what we call the mind or the body, or even our experience of the physical world, or what we call the physical world, which is a translation of sensations, images, feelings, and thoughts, and that we call the physical world or the physical body. So what is the source of all this? The source of all this in great wisdom traditions is what we call pure consciousness. So pure consciousness is not the mind, it is beyond the conditioned mind. I wrote a previous book, as you know, called Meta-Human, which is how do we wake up to that which is beyond our mind, which is conditioned by history, by culture, by religion, by society, by upbringing, by education, on and on. So our minds are limited. Our bodies are a projection or a construction of sensations, and so is the world. But what is the source of all this? In the wisdom traditions is pure consciousness. Pure consciousness is a field of infinite possibilities. It's unpredictable, it's creative, it's a field of synchronicity or non-local correlation. It is the source of attention and intention. If it comes from there, the attention and intention, not from the conditioned separate ego mind, then it has infinite organizing power. So abundance, in layman's terms, could be called generosity of spirit. You know, these days, it's unfashionable to talk about soul, spirit. People have, again, conditioned ideas about these entities or God. So I think we can just say consciousness or awareness as the fundamental reality. Actually, you know, since you're from the Netherlands, I had a great mentor in the Netherlands who spoke about fundamental reality as acausal, non-local, quantum mechanical interrelatedness. Hermes Romain, he was a neuroscientist in Amsterdam, and you know, he came to some of my talks. I got a lot of insights about what would be the modern version of what we call spirit, generosity of spirit, abundance, infinite abundance.
Is there a difference between consciousness and awareness?
Some people think so. So awareness could be without conscious experience. And consciousness is once awareness modifies itself into experience. But as you know, a lot of experience is not conscious. You may not have consciously heard something in your sleep, but it still gets somehow programmed into your mind. So there is what we call the conscious mind, and then, you know, in modern language, there's something called the unconscious mind or the subconscious mind.
We were talking about consciousness and the subconscious mind. And I know for a lot of people, it's very hard to connect with that other part of yourself, because most people see themselves only as the body we live in, and they don't understand that there's so much more of who we really are. Can you explain or advise how we can connect to the inner self?
Well, there are, throughout ancient wisdom traditions, there are techniques which sort of fall under the rubric of meditation, such as mindfulness, reflection, contemplation, focused awareness, concentration I mentioned, and transcendence, which is going beyond subject-object split. The nature of reality is that it's a unified experience in one source. Your mind, your body, and what we call the physical world are a unified experience in consciousness. If somebody asked you, where is this experience happening? Some people would say it's happening on the computer screen, but the computer screen is not having an experience. Others would say, and the experience is occurring in the brain. But again, the brain has no experience. All you see is electrochemistry in the brain. But you don't experience electrochemistry. You experience what we call colors and shapes and forms and sounds and tastes and textures and smells. You experience thoughts, you experience feelings and emotions, you experience imagination. Where is all this happening? If I put a knife through the brain, nothing happens. You don't even experience pain. So the brain certainly shows correlates of experience in the form of electrochemistry, what we call the neural correlates of experience, NCE. But where is the experience actually happening? And, you said it's a mystery. This is called the hard problem of consciousness. And I think we can say clearly that the experience is happening in awareness. Where else could it be happening? If there's an experience outside of awareness, then it's not accessible to us. The only experiences we have are in our own awareness. Then the next question is, where is this awareness? Can we see it? Can we scientifically document it? And that seems at first a reasonable question, but it's actually not a reasonable question, because that awareness in which the experience is happening doesn't have a form. If it had a form, you would be able to see it, but it has no form. So by definition, it has no boundary, and therefore, by definition, it is infinite. And therefore, by definition, it is not accessible to the limited mind, by definition. The only thing we can say about this experience right now, it's happening now. It's happening here. And where is this here? It's just where you are, where your body is, where your mind is. But your body and mind is not the source of experience. It is being experienced in awareness in the form of sensations, images, feelings, and thoughts. And then the rest is a construction. That's a changing body. But, there's no such thing as a body independently of awareness. Body is just a modification of awareness in the form of changing perceptions. You say, I have a body. Which body are you talking about? You started as a fertilized ovum, then you were a zygote, then you were an embryo, then you were a baby and a toddler, young adult, teenager, old adult, all the way to dusty death. So the body is not a noun, it's a verb. And so too mind. Mind is, can you tell me what thoughts you were having last Thursday at 3:00? You have no idea. Because thoughts come and go like clouds in the sky, as do emotions. So what is having the experience? Awareness. Where is it? Has no location. That's why we say non-local, infinite, irreducible, and non-conceptualized. You cannot conceptualize it. Concepts are limiting. But, there's a great poem of Rumi. He was asked, who are you? He said, if you label me and define me, you'll starve yourself of yourself. Nail me down in a coffin with cold words, and that box will be your own coffin. I'm your own voice echoing off the walls of God, which means everything that we see is a projection, including our body, including others, including the Milky Way galaxy. It's a projection of consciousness. As I said, this is not an easy concept to grasp unless you're in the habit of being aware of your body and what we call the body in the form of sensations, which is a technique called vipassana, or in the habit of being aware of your emotions or thoughts, or you are in a habit of constantly reflecting, who am I? What is it that wants to know the answer to that question? What am I? Am I the changing body, or am I the awareness in which the changing body is an experience? Am I the changing mind, or am I the awareness in which the changing mind is an experience? Now, these days it's unfashionable to talk about religion. People say, I'm spiritual, I'm not religious. But the religious experience and the spiritual experience is actually a shift in identity from the body-mind to the source of the body-mind, which is non-local, timeless. It also is the emergence of what we call Platonic truth, goodness, beauty, harmony, love, compassion, joy, equanimity. And finally, it is also the experience of the loss of the fear of death, because awareness, being non-local, is not subject to birth and death. When I speak about this is very abstract, but I've written books where I offer practices, including abundance, where we offer practices through the 7 centers of awareness. And now these 7 centers are in Indian tradition called chakras, or wheels of awareness. But that's a metaphor. Ultimately, experiences in awareness. And the 7 levels are kind of an extension of the hierarchy of needs as defined by Abraham Maslow. And actually, if you look at Abraham Maslow's notes, it's obvious that this is where he got this knowledge from. And before he died, he was actually going beyond what he called self-actualization to self-transcendence, which is going beyond the subject-object split.
And if we speak about the mind, is that something different than the self-awareness, the self-consciousness? Is it a different concept?
Yeah, totally different concept. When you go to conferences, even on the mind, there are a lot of people I go to these conferences where you have cognitive scientists and so on, and nobody can come up with a good definition of mind. But finally, I did come across one by the neuropsychiatrist Dan Siegel from UCLA. And I modified it a little bit for my own purposes. Here is what the mind is. The mind is a relational and embodied process that regulates the flow of energy and information in an ecosystem of sentient relationships. Now, it sounds very abstract, but just go to the words. Embodied, it's in the body, not just in the brain. The mind is in the body. Relational, you can only have mind in relationship to other minds. Right now, my mind is in relationship to your mind, and also in relationship to all the minds that are hearing this conversation. So it's a process which is embodied in the cells of our body, and it is also relational, and it is the flow of energy and information. In this case, the energy is photons and electromagnetic energy, and it is embedded with information, which is our conversation. So that's a very good definition of mind, when you realize then that you don't actually have a mind. The mind is interdependent on all other minds. Actually, even your body is part of a larger body. We call it the planet or the biosphere. And the atoms and molecules in your body are constantly recycling through the ecosystem of molecules and atoms that recirculate in our bodies, so in trees and animals and birds, in flora and fauna and bacteria. Ultimately, what we call the matrix is actually a correct word. The matrix is the interdependent co-arising of minds and bodies. We are part of a larger body, and we are part of a larger mind. And scientifically speaking, even the atoms and molecules of your body came from the crucible of burning stars. 50% of the atoms in your body are not even from the Milky Way galaxy. As I mentioned, there are 2 trillion galaxies, and 50% of the atoms come from other galaxies. as a result of a phenomenon called gravitational wind. So who are you? Well, you're the whole universe at this moment, a process that we call a human being. And, humans like to create classifications. We call ourselves Homo sapiens. We give names to other species. It's all a convenient fiction, which makes science and technology possible, but hides the fundamental truth of one consciousness, innumerable minds, innumerable bodies, innumerable objects, but one consciousness.
Actually, we're all one. There's one big oneness. And there's one big question. Why do so many people on this planet fight each other? Why there's so many conflict? Why can't we express more love and kindness?
Because of our conditioning, which goes back to tribal, primitive, medieval minds. That prime medieval mind is recycling right now in our ecosystem with the great tragedy, what you see in Russia and Ukraine and the Middle East, war, famine, social injustice, economic injustice, climate change. All these are projections of the conditioned tribal mind. And now in the past, that could have worked. It never worked really as a solution to problems. But now we have the same tribal primitive mind, but we have modern capacities. We have biological warfare. We have nuclear weapons. We have mechanized ways of killing with each other. We have drones. So right now what we're seeing is the projection of the collective divided mind, which results in social injustice, economic injustice, war, terrorism, climate change, extinction of species. We are sleepwalking our way to extinction. Last extinction was 69 million years ago when a meteorite fell on this earth and, dinosaurs were wiped out in the matter of hours or days. This is what is going to happen to human beings unless we suddenly wake up. We are right now sleepwalking to extinction.
The world is transforming. Do you believe that we are heading to a new era of love and light? Or do we have to really awaken consciousness, global consciousness, before evil will rule on this planet?
100%. We have to wake up, and it's urgent. The technologies are there, to reverse climate change, to resurrect even extinct species, to create a planet of global peace and prosperity. I'm also thinking if I had the help, right now, artificial intelligence is being touted as a solution to many situations. I'm using artificial intelligence right now to create, a deeper understanding of the future of well-being. So we could use AI and biofeedback and also bioregulation and self-evolving artificial intelligence systems to actually create a system of health which would be predictable, preventable, participatory, a process, but would actually help us bioregulate our bodies. So the other day I was thinking if we could create an AI system that could predict peace and prosperity based on certain measures, because peace and prosperity go together right now because of what's happening in Ukraine. We think the sanctions are punishing the Russians, but they're punishing everyone. Economies are interdependent. And it's so obvious that no violent solution, including sanctions, are going to work because, people are losing jobs. So I would love to enlist the help of anyone listening right now to help me create an AI system which is predictable in actually offering solutions to conflict resolution. The techniques for conflict resolution are there. Have respect for your adversaries, recognize the perception of injustice on both sides, recognize that fear is a factor on both sides, use the principles of emotional intelligence, don't be belligerent, understand other people's values, don't bring religion or ideology into a conversation, don't prove the other person wrong. But that's not enough. Nonviolent communication is not enough. How do we create that system of communication and actually predict peace and prosperity? And, prosperity and peace go together. We always say peace and prosperity, but we don't have it. So how about creating an artificial intelligence system which is self-evolving, self-learning, that helps people create peace and prosperity in their personal lives and their communities, ultimately in the world? And take an example, if we had Kashmir, Pakistan, India right now, always conflict. China on the border, always conflict. They're neighbors. Imagine a system that could predict, how about we go to the Himalayas and we create the best ski resort in the world. This is the economics. This is how Pakistan benefits by bringing to the table their strengths. This is how China, this is how Kashmir, this is how India. Same thing with Palestine and Israel. Can we do that? Same thing with Russia and its neighboring states. Same thing as a global system, because we are nation states are a convenient fiction. The border between Canada and US and Mexico is a cultural border. Similarly, in Europe, you travel a few. I've been to Flodrop and Amsterdam, and I have to travel a few miles here and there. And I'm in Germany, France, Switzerland. So these are cultural divisions. They're not actually physical divisions. And even the cultural divisions, when you have maximum diversity, is good. Maximum diversity, emotional and spiritual bonding, and complementing each other's strengths, you can create a more peaceful, just, sustainable, healthier, and joyful world. Part of that is our own awakening. Yes, that's what my book Meta Human was about. That's what my book Total Meditation was about. In a way, that's what How to Create Abundance is also about. But how about if we actually collectively embark? And this will be very practical. It's not hopelessly abstract. And it's the need of the time. We need to do this urgently. We are at a crossroads. One road is well-traveled and has been recycling for thousands of years and is causing devastation in the world. The other road is less traveled, but let's make it the road well-traveled, and let's actually create what is called emergence. Emergence happens when you have two new contexts, new meaning, new relationships, and a new story. The old story has to die. It's a death and a resurrection. Today, I'm a fan of technology. I think technology can be used to devastate and cause our extinction. But technology by itself is neutral. We can use the same technology to create a more peaceful, just, sustainable, healthier, and joyful world. We need a critical mass of people, in my mind, 1 billion people, who are in social and personal transformation to be the change they want to see in the world. So it's very practical. This is not abstract.
1 billion people, you say. About 50 years ago, in the 70s and 80s, you named Flodorp, the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, he had a vision that if enough people daily at the same time or in big groups, a lot of people together would meditate, that would have a huge positive impact on the world. Do you share that same vision?
I do. Maharishi was my guru and my mentor. So I share that totally. But at that time when Maharishi was speaking about all this, there wasn't data. There was some, but there wasn't the kind of data we have now. And there wasn't the practical means to share that. Right now, you and I are having a conversation, which theoretically could be shared with 1 billion people.
Mm-hmm. Deepak, let's go back to the book. The cover says, "Abundance is an enlightening guide to success, fulfillment, and wholeness, offering practical advice on how to cultivate a sense of abundance in times of fear and insecurity." that's today's reality. Today, a lot of people do not live in abundance. People suffer, they live in pain, they have lack of money, they have mental problems. Um, Look to the world we live in at the moment. What advice can you give? What can these people do or learn to live a better life?
So abundance is at several levels. Survival and safety is one level. Love and belongingness is a second level. A third level is material abundance in the form of money. A fourth level could be creative expression. Fifth level could be insight, intuition, imagination. Sixth level could be higher consciousness. And seventh level could be transcendence. So what I did in this book, Abundance, what I did is, everybody tries to solve problems mentally, but the problems are created mentally by the conditioned mind. So no solution can come from the source of the problem, mental solution. This book is not about how to use mental techniques. In a way, it's drawn from what people would call Tantra. Tantra is a Western word that's become popular in that people think tantric rituals are sexual and spiritual rituals. But Tantra, properly pronounced Tantra, is any ritual that can be used to channel energy, information, and intention. So Tantra and Mantra and Yantra go together. Yantra is a visual outcome. Tantra is the ritual, and Mantra is the sound syllable that in a way traps the energy information through intention. It's a scaffolding mantra. The word mantra comes from the word man, which means mind, and tra, instrument of the mind to go beyond the mind. So as you'll see, there are in the book, 7 basic rituals. We start with top-down approach in this case, starting with bliss and going all the way to security and safety and being grounded in what we call the physical world. So the book is actually a modern-day adaptation of ancient ritualistic techniques. People should not understand ritual as empty of meaning. Ritual actually embodies experience with meaning. It is a way of trapping energy, information, and then channeling it to a desired outcome. That's what the book Abundance is ultimately about. I first thought of writing the book when I heard a lyric by Bob Marley, which said, "Some people are so poor, all they have is money." And, I asked myself, does money buy you true love? Does money buy you compassion? Does money conquer the fear of death? Does money ensure that you will not have old age infirmity? Does money buy you creativity? It does nothing of the sort, but yet we need money for our physical comforts, and it has an important place, but it's not by itself abundance.
Abundance is something that we read a lot about in spiritual magazines, and I know people who live spiritually, they love the word abundance, and they have an aversion to money, like money is evil, wealthy people are bad. And for a lot of people, it's confusing that you write about the laws of success and money and mindfulness and wealth. And how can you merge the two, both separate worlds into one, but how can one live that all in one life in a spiritual yogi lifestyle?
Well, if you think money is spiritually not something that is congruent, then that will ensure one thing: you'll be poor for the rest of your life. And, some people, they take vows of poverty in religious traditions. And yet the religious institutions themselves are very rich, whether they're the Vatican or, the synagogues of the world or the temples of India, or the mosques. So it's a method to control and manipulate people, this guilt and shame about spirituality and affluence going together. Now, I come from a tradition, Vedanta, which is just the opposite. It says there are 4 goals of life: dharma, finding your meaning and purpose in your life, expressing your unique talents; artha, which literally means money and material success; kama, which means pleasure and delight of the 5 senses, including sexuality; and finally, moksha, the freedom to enjoy everything and yet be detached from it. This is because only when you're detached with it, you can actually create. And detachment is a very practical thing. It means process-oriented instead of outcome-oriented. Today, our world is outcome-oriented and therefore stressed. If I'm walking this road because I want to get to a certain destination, but I only look at the destination, I'll stumble where I am. But if I walk the road, I'll get to the destination. So it's just a shift in awareness, as usual.
But do you visualize? Do you visualize outcomes or dreams or desires you have? Yes.
In the tantric techniques, you visualize not just in terms of images, but in terms of sounds, in terms of tastes, in terms of smells, in terms of textures, in terms of feelings, in terms of emotions, and in terms of thoughts. So they all go together. They're entangled. Sensations, images, feelings, thoughts are entangled. You change one. If I think of my mother who's long gone, I see her face in my consciousness. I can even remember the smell of her skin, the sound of her voice, and the emotions that I had. That's all part of the visualization process. But visualization, as commonly understood, and this law of attraction and all this nonsense, is a totally mental thing. You have to go beyond the mental thing into the rituals that allow sensations, images, feelings, thoughts to actually construct your reality. And then you follow a process which involves meditation. We call it dharana, focused awareness in intention, in visualization; dhyan, meditation; and samadhi, which is transcendence.
Mm-hmm. I was just thinking about abundance. If we look to our world today, more and more people, they own billions of the wealth in the world, and billions of people live in poverty. Well, would there be a solution in your vision to equal more that abundance upon all the people on this planet?
I think everyone deserves abundance, and if the source of abundance is infinite, then everybody deserves that. It's just that we have been bamboozled by the tribal mind.
But I know if I'm teaching, I always get this question: if you know so well how to teach what you wrote in this book, how does it apply to people in Syria or Africa or in war zones? How can they profit from your wisdom?
We should, in all seriousness, we should create an app for them and help them to, reading books is these days, people are not reading books, even though I write them constantly. People need very practical tools, apps, artificial intelligence, critical mass. My heart weeps for those people in Syria and all the people suffering in the world. And there's nothing like I would like to do more than help create abundance for everyone in the world. And it needs a collective effort. One person can't do it. We need, as I said, maximum diversity in education, in the arts, in music, in poetry, in philosophy, in science, in technology, and ethnic background. Maximum diversity, emotional and spiritual bonding, and shared vision. If we have those 3 components, we can create a new world.
Please allow me to read a short paragraph of the foreword of your book. Golden diamonds are only found by searching and digging. You can find all the truth about yourself if you're willing to dig deep into the mine of your own soul. If you do, you will discover that you are the maker of your own character and the creator of your own destiny. This book, Abundance, gives you a better understanding of money consciousness in a spiritual way. But while reading it, I noticed that it's also a quest. You ask a lot of questions. I think reading the book is not too hard, but thinking over all the questions needs time. Can you share some of the questions from the book with us?
The questions are right in the beginning where I do the soul profile. In the English version, it's about page 10 or so, where there are a few questions that you've answered. It gives you a sense of what is really valuable in your life, what you value. And what we call money or currency is the exchange of values. We call it currency. And we call it exchange, the stock exchange. So what is stock exchange doing? It's exchanging values of people. If you know your values, and you hang out with people who have similar values, you can create a lot of money as well. So that's how it starts. The questions is basically, as has been said historically, the unexamined life is not worth living. You have to examine your life.
Finally, Deepak, you're 75 years old. You look so healthy and vital. What do you do to stay young as you are?
I don't take myself seriously. I don't get offended by people. I don't get flattered either. I practice yoga every day. I meditate every day. And I love what I do. I'm in my dharma. So, I'm physically very energetic, but I also have access to love and compassion and the creative mind and to laughter and humor. I mean, I look at all the leaders of the world. No one is even smiling. They must be miserable.
Maybe that could be your wish for the world, is it?
Oh, I do. Peace, joy, laughter, and love.
May I thank you so much for sharing this moment together with me, with all these people, these lovely souls.
And thank you to Master Academy for helping me with this message. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deepak. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Wishing
Goodbye.
Goodbye. Bye-bye.